everybody, and thank you for joining me on this episode of the Show About the Show podcast. Very excited for today's guest, former 2001 National League All-Star with the Chicago Cubs, former Major League pitcher Jon Lieber, also played for the Pirates, the Yankees, played in the postseason, was a 20-game winner. We'll get into all that. But ladies and gentlemen, 2001 National League All-Star, Jon Lieber. Jon, how you doing?
Very good, Devlin. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. I want to talk a little bit about. So you were born in Council Bluffs, Iowa, I believe, and you played 2 years at community college, and then you transferred to University of Southern Alabama for 2 years, and you actually had really good success there. You were 12-5 both years. You led the team in ERA and strikeouts. Was that really was baseball kind of always something you knew you wanted to do, or was that kind of something that you just were playing in the backyard with your friends or playing high school and you realized you were just that much better than everybody else?
Well, if you got a few minutes here, I'm going to tell you how this story began. But I've always loved baseball. There was one year where I didn't play. I think I was 12 years old at the time, and I think when kids hit that age, they hit growth spurts and you get intimidated. It's like, man, all right, don't want to face that guy or play against these players. But I've always loved the sport. It just seemed like the only thing, out of all the sports, I've tried basketball, soccer. I felt like I was fairly good at. I'm not going to say the best, but like I was halfway decent out there. So get through high school, had a pretty good high school career. No scouts or anything like that. No colleges, looking at me. I was 84 to 86. I think with my fastball pitched some, was not relied on heavily, I don't think. And I really thought my baseball career was pretty much over. I signed up to go to junior college at Iowa Western, which is in my hometown, and was not planning on playing baseball. And my mom actually talked me into playing. I thought my career was over. I was going to go get, some sort of degree and become a truck driver like my dad, and
Sure.
and living. And so I did, reluctantly a little bit, went out there, tried out, actually, made the team. And always wanted to be a hitter and play the outfield, but I found out real quick I was not the right guy for that position. So very, very slow. Hit okay, not bad, but much better athletes than I was for that position. So the catcher, I'll never forget it. We were playing catch, and he mentioned to the coach about, hey, you need to really, like I said, I pitched a little bit in high school. You need to try Jon at as a pitcher. So coach put me out there and, liked what he saw. And I think I threw 19 innings my freshman year, 39 or 40 innings my sophomore year. We went to the JUCO World Series that year, but I really thrived, playing at Iowa Western. Really, if anything, it was like another chapter in my career, and enjoyed it. And I thought, okay, maybe there is something, possibly playing on, and it was getting looked at other colleges, Division I, NAIA schools, Division II, so forth. And had a scholarship to Nebraska, did a recruiting trip over there, but I really kind of wanted to get away from the area. I went to, I was 20 years old and went to some tryout camps, and I'll never forget, Bill Yates was a scout for the Mets and made a call to South Alabama. Had no idea about the school or whatever, and this was like in July. And the pitching coach, Ronnie Powell, made the trip up to watch me pitch. And it was like the middle of July or so. Now you got to remember, this is, kind of late for recruiting. Usually, the recruiting's done, guys are wrapped up, March, April, so forth. And flew me down first week of August, fell in love with the area. Had no idea where Mobile was, never been down. This is the furthest south I've ever been. And, but just, fell in love with the area, the people, Ronnie, Coach Powell, we call him CP. he was awesome. Felt like, there was, kind of a closeness there. And so I ended up signing and, got a 50% scholarship to come to the University of South Alabama. Well, I found out in a hurry, CP was more like Jekyll and Hyde, and basically, I can elaborate on this story later if we'd like, but he really defined my career on where I went beyond that, and I really give a lot of credit to him for making me who I was as a ball player, continuing on to professional level. And it was something else to go through that I think a lot of kids might be missing out on today. And it was a life-changing event for me for sure. So
Was it a lot of character building? Was it tough love? Like, what was it that made him have such a profound impact on you professionally?
well, it was tough love. It was like I said, when he came up there, it was nice, and hey, how you doing? Talk to my parents, just laid back. But you know, uh, Coach Powell played under Eddie Stanky, who started this program down here, and I'm sure people that know Eddie Stanky have heard the stories. Very tough of way to play baseball. Took the players, and it was kind of like molding them into who he wanted them to be, to how to play the game the right way. And it's not like some of these bigger universities nowadays where you recruit 25 guys and you just set them out there and just let them go play, if you know what I mean. So uh, Coach Powell had that, instilled in him. And so when I get down here, it was I'm not gonna lie, there was moments, my junior year, he relied on me to be, the number 2 starter coming into the season. And I was pitching scared is what I was doing. I would be intimidating facing, going into the fall games, playing against LSU, Florida State or whatever. And, these are big time schools that I'm facing, but he saw something in me that, could be that he knew could be very successful at this level, and wanted to get that out of me when I would go out there onto the mound and I wasn't producing what he thought I was capable of doing, if that makes sense. So I'll never forget, I started out 0-3 and I was getting chewed out and this and that. And I mean, just wearing me out left and right. But it was a game against Mississippi State. And I just want to be upfront with you right now. I mean, I can say whatever I want on this. I mean, is there any censoring?
Nope, you can say whatever you want. You can, profanity is okay. Yes, you can,
And,
you can say whatever you want.
for any kids out there listening, I apologize, but I'm going to tell the story like it is. So, at Mississippi State, I think it was like 2 1/3 innings, and I'd given up 5 runs. I walked in a run. I walked like 3 or 4 guys, just pitching with a tight booty hole. And he comes out there. I mean, he's just cussing me out left and right, and all the way back to the dugout. And I get down there and I'm moping around. I got my head down, and he, I didn't see him coming, but he walks all the way down there and gets in front of me, and CP, he's about 5'10", and man, he grabbed me by the cheeks as hard as he could. I mean, like, startled me a little. And I stood up, and he could see it. He could see it in my face, like, what do you feel like doing? And that's what he said. He goes, "What do you feel like doing?" I said, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass right here." He goes, "That's what I want to hear. Next time, take it out there," and turned around and walked off. And man, there was something in that conversation that just like a light switch went off, and fire, instilled in me. And man, from there on, I think the rest of the season I went 12-2. Turned it on, became a 9th round pick, for the Cubs, but, decided to come back. We had a long talk about that. He thought another year playing at school was going to help me, for my, I guess, better prepare me for professional ball. And I think it was the best decision I ever made. But yeah, that whole moment right there was a life changer for me.
You guys actually won the Sun Belt Conference Championship that year. And you mentioned that you were drafted by the Cubs in 1991, but you elected not to sign. You obviously mentioned that the coach was part of that decision. how much of that decision was he, and how much of that was you kind of knowing that maybe you needed a little bit more seasoning, or were you like, hey, I know that after this happened, I'm ready to go to the majors?
Well, there was two sides to that story. CP had that talk with me, and we talked for a good bit, and then I went over to meet with the scout, and I'm not gonna lie, back then I knew what the numbers were for a ninth round pick. What guys were getting, especially a junior, and it was very insulting. The numbers, there was four plans laid out, four different options I could choose from, and I think back then, the ninth round pick for a junior was getting, I think, $31,000 or $32,000 to sign in that round, along with school, to finish their schooling, and that's all I was asking for. I wasn't looking for anything more than that.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, I think the the least amount that they offered was 11,000, and I think one of the options was 18,000, and I said, I'm sorry, but there's no way I'm going to sign for that. And and he told me, he said, well, you're not going to get any more than that. And I just hate to tell you. I said, well, I guess I'm going to go back to school. And this was already after I had the talk with, Ronnie, and so I made up my mind, but, in the instance, so I told him, I said, if you can get close to that, I'd probably do it. Well, I think 2 or 3 weeks later went by. The cross checker called me back. I was already at home, and the Cubs were going to match it, but I've already made up my mind. I said, no, I'm going to go back to school, and I think I'm going to finish my career there, and take a chance on the draft going forward into the next year, and it paid off pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how kind of baseball works out, because I'm sure at that point you probably didn't think someday you'd actually be playing for the Cubs, given that they kind of, I guess, lowballed you maybe, but we'll get into that. But you were actually drafted in 1992 by the Royals. You didn't pitch for them that season. You were traded to the Pirates after that season. You made your debut on May 15th, 1994. It was right in the Barry Bonds, Jim Leland, Andy Van Slyke era. What do you remember about not just being a rookie at that point, but also kind of just being around those big personalities, Bonds especially?
Well, Bonds was actually gone. He signed with the Giants in
Oh, that's
'92.
right, 92, yeah.
Mania was already gone. Andy Van, let's see, the guys that were still there, Van Slyke was still there. Jay Bell was at shortstop. Jeff King was at third. Orlando Merced, Al Martin. Trying to think. Carlos Garcia was another one. Don Slott was a catcher. He was still there. But yeah, the two big boys though, they were already gone. But I know coming in, they were rebuilding. They were up front with me when I got the call up, and I'll never forget going in and talking to Jim Leland, and and he just told me, he said, hey, don't change anything. You just be who you are, and just go out there and do what you've been doing. And and I got off to a pretty good start through the minor leagues that year before I came up, and I think it did. It carried over, into the big leagues, and it was nice, being able to do that. And unfortunately, we had to strike that year, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, it was awesome to definitely be a part of that. So,
What do you remember specifically about your debut?
oh man, well, the first one it was on my mom and dad's anniversary. I think they're
Okay.
30, oh golly, I should know this, 30th anniversary is what it
Okay.
was. So that that was a big day. It's on Mother's Day was another day in Philadelphia on a Sunday, 56,000 people. And the really cool part was it was, I think, 30 miles from Wilmington, Delaware, where I had a really good connection with the people down there, and Wilmington brought baseball back after like 50 years to the area. And, I was the first one, when that was on that team in '93 when they started it back. I was the first one off that team to make it actually to the big leagues. So special. A lot of people came up for that. But just had my whole family there, my wife, my mom, dad, my brothers, their wives. It was just a great experience all the way around.
Are there? I've asked other players this. What were your feelings as you were kind of walking out to the mound, or as you were warming up on the mound, throwing those pitches? Like, what's going through your body? Is it you're focusing on what you're trying to do, or are you trying to block, like, for the love of the game? You're like Billy Chaplin. You're trying to block all the other noise out. Like, take me through that kind of mental and physical experience of, oh my God, I'm a major leaguer. I'm warming up. This is my debut.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the game on certain days, to have the opportunity to pitch in front of that many fans, passionate fans, by the way, in Philly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they boo Santa Claus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But to have 56,000 people on your opening day, not a lot of guys can say that. To be honest with you, because most of the time, it's not a special day. It's a Monday or a Wednesday or whatever, to where you might have 15,000 or 25,000, which is still a lot, but it was a day that day. So it was a beautiful day. But I'm walking out, and it's just my whole thing. I don't want to say I wasn't nervous. I think I'm nervous every start until I get out there on the mound. But I just tried to really block it out. And I think my whole trying to prepare myself was try not to overthrow. Just it's no different than any other time where you've been. Um, you know, Lance Parrish was my catcher that day, which very thankful for, because he's been around the game for a long time. Great target. One of my all-time favorites to pitch to. And he really helped me through that whole process. I always give a lot of credit to my catchers, but during that process, there was nobody better to have back there than him. And like I said, he's been in some big situations. He really helped me stay under control, and we just had a good click that day. And I was I'll never forget, I heard Jim Fregosi told some of the reporters that when they came to me and talked to me after the game, he was surprised at how hard I was throwing that day. And obviously a lot of it was adrenaline, but he said the reports were all wrong, that I was throwing much harder than the reports were saying. And I think it caught some guys off guard up there too. So
yeah, you kind of seem to sit about 90 to 92 with your fastball, your slider. You were a three-pitch pitcher, fastball, slider, changeup for the most part. On righties, it was a slider, and on lefties, I believe it was a changeup that kind of darted away. What do you remember about the conversation that Jim Leland had with you when he told you that you were going to make your major league debut? Because for me, like, as somebody who's never been in that moment, I think those are the kind of the coolest moments. Like, what was that like for you? Because it's kind of a culmination of everything you had worked up to at that point, from high school in Iowa to college in Alabama to the minor leagues. You mentioned, Wilmington, Delaware. You've already been traded once. Like, what was that experience for you, or what was that conversation like for you? And who'd you call after and say, "Hey, I'm making my major league debut"?
well, it's one of those moments you never forget. And it wasn't Leland was the one that told me. So it was in Buffalo, New York. We get done with the game, and and I was, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I was pitching very well, and things were going very well from AA to AAA that year. And I was just trying to take it a game at a time, personally, because you get to a certain age, to where, if you're not doing well, you're going to be stuck in a rut, if you know what I mean. The younger guys start to jump over you. So, they said, "Hey, the skipper wants to talk to you." And I think it was Doc. Can't remember his last name. Well-known player back in the day, but
Doc
he was
Ellis?
no, it was Doc Edwards.
Doc Edwards. Okay.
Yeah. So he said he wants to talk to you. So I go in there, Cam Boniface, GM at the time, Pete Vukovich, who's the assistant GM. I think there was maybe one other person in there. And Vuk is awesome. I don't know if you've ever got a chance to meet Pete Vukovich, but one of my all-time favorite pitching coaches. I mean, he's absolutely the best. But he's just got that look, and he's like, he goes, "Hey, I mean, right off the bat, he goes, "Hey, you think you know what you're doing out there? Nobody else is saying anything. This is Vukovich talking." I said, "Yeah, I kind of got an idea, I guess, and you really think you know what you're doing?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, congratulations, kid. You're going to the big leagues." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You're going to start so-and-so and, you need to call this number. They're going to take care of you." And I mean, it was just, overload. And, you walk, they said, make sure you call your parents or whatever, and, let people know. And it's just, congratulations, this and that. And, but I remember walking out and, it's an emotional moment. It really is.
Absolutely.
And especially when, you get to call your mom and dad. And that was the first person I called was my mom. And, just couldn't believe it, some crying. And it was just an awesome moment, yeah, I didn't call my wife at the time, but I think that bond between, your mother and or your father, it's just something special, especially at a time like this. So she was the first one that I called, and just a lot of excitement, just really couldn't believe it. It's just, if I could, it's hard to explain. It was never a goal of mine to get to the big leagues, if that makes sense. It was I've just always tried to respect the game as much as possible, and I just was always a big fan and just enjoyed playing it. And to be at that level, with really no, how do I say this, no teaching or one-on-one sessions growing up as a kid like they do today, where they really focus on these things. I look back at it and I really think, man, I was really lucky, and in some of the places that I'd been in was at the right place at the right time, and very blessed, for God to put me in those situations. I really give all the credit to Him. I'm not a strong spiritual guy or strong Christian, as much as I'd like to be. I have my own faults, but without God in my life and put me in those situations, it wouldn't be possible. I really believe that. So He was looking out for me, and because you get out there on the road and this big world, going to Eugene, Oregon, to Baseball City, to Wilmington, Delaware, I mean, you're meeting all these people, and to stay out of trouble, to say, and stay focused is pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, when you did get to the Pirates, though, you did have Jim Leland as a manager. Leland actually this year is going to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Did you kind of know, even as a young player, that like there's something different about this guy as a manager, especially when you went on to your career and the different managers you had? Did you know that like there's something different about Leland? And also, have you reached out to Jim and congratulated him, or do you plan to go to Cooperstown this year?
Yeah, I mean, Skip, what we'd like to call him, but I think I was just a naive kid, in the situation, because he was only there till '96, and then he moved on
Right.
to the Marlins, or was it the Marlins or Rockies or something? No, it was the Marlins. I'm sorry. And I think more than anything, I was part of a rebuilding process, and I didn't pitch up to the standards I think what the club was hoping me to pitch at going forward. Because I was sent down the next year, '95. Here it is, a guy that they traded for, pitched well his rookie year, counting on big things going forward in '95. Really, struggled. Coming off the strike and all that, but I really didn't get to see it. I think more than anything, I think I saw frustration on him, because he was part of he'd been there since '86, and really saw the building stages of the team that they put together, and I mean, won the pennant 3 years in a row, um, and weren't able to get to that, the ultimate goal of winning the championship. And I think to see that all get torn down, I think I saw the frustration side of him of like, I don't want to go through this again. Don't have a bad word to say about him. I mean, he's one of the best managers, at the time, maybe all time, because of the way he went about his business, preparing the club to play the game, and he didn't put anybody first. He treated everybody the same, and all he expected you to do was just go out there and do your job and play to your best ability and hopefully win a ball game. So, I hope, I would like to reach out to him. That's because, he was my first manager, and congratulate him. I think, it would be, an honor just to be able to tell him that, and, well deserving too. There's nobody more deserving than him.
Absolutely. You were traded. You were traded to the Cubs in '98. Obviously, I'm sorry, '99. You were traded
No,
in '98.
yeah,
Was that
98. It was 90.
98?
Yeah.
98. For baseball fans, that was obviously when Kerry Wood was, striking out 20 guys in the game. Can you talk about kind of how baseball came full circle? We mentioned earlier that, the Cubs offered you between, the floor was 11 and it was 18, and then they matched it and you'd already decided. Was that kind of a full circle moment for you to be traded to the Cubs? And then what do you remember about playing in Wrigley Field? I mean, it's probably the one at the time, other than Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, which you also got to play in, probably one of the most iconic ballparks in all of baseball. So can you kind of talk about what you remember in 98, 99?
Well, yeah. So 98. It was in December, and I'll never forget it. I want to say I saw it on TV. I didn't even get a phone call yet, where I'd
Okay.
been. So I was in my parents' home. I was up there for Christmas, my wife and I at the time, and just saw, holy cow, I just got traded, to the Cubs, and I guess they've been trying to call me back in Alabama, and I was in Iowa. So, but yeah, it was kind of wild because as a visiting player, you're going to Wrigley Field, and it's one of the worst. How do I say this? I don't want to say the worst, but you get intimidated by the wind blowing out, and it's a small ballpark. Um, and it kind of plays with your head a little bit. Luckily, I was a sinker ball pitcher. I wasn't fly ball pitcher or anything like that. So,
Right.
balls and, did pitch too bad there. But, when I had the chance to actually go over there and play with them, it's one of the best moments in my career. I absolutely love Chicago. I love Wrigley Field. Love the fans. I think I can relate to them because I'm a Midwestern guy.
Sure.
Um, not to take anything away from Pittsburgh at the time, because I love those people too, hardworking, blue collar people. But it's just something about the Midwest, and I just really adapted to the area, and to be a part of that ballpark in the history, and I felt like I was starting to come into my own in my career. uh, it was a big moment in my career to where I finally started figuring some things out, if that makes sense. I've always kind of considered myself a late bloomer. I just wasn't the guy. You get drafted and just start dealing. It's not knocking off 20 wins here, 19 wins or whatever. Had to build myself up, but um, had a rough year in '99. That first year, of course, the big hit was Kerry going down with the elbow surgery. Not having him around to be a part of that club, and I mean, we were terrible, from the get go. But they brought in Baylor, I think, after that, and then one of my all time favorite pitching coaches was Oscar Costa. They brought him in. Absolutely loved playing underneath him, and just the whole time there. I love the day games. being a part of that. A lot of guys don't like day games, almost every day, but there was just something about being at the ballpark at 9 o'clock, and you felt like you had your evenings free. It was like an everyday job, I guess. So, but probably my fondest moment. So playing there compared to all the other ballparks I've been in.
When this was before obviously your all-star year in 2001. You mentioned Kerry Wood going down in 99. When you got there and you got traded, obviously you mentioned December of 98. Kerry goes down in 99. How much were you able to pick his brain? Because at that point he was an all-star, he was a superstar. He had the 20 strikeout game obviously in 98. How much were you able to kind of pick his brain and learn maybe about how you're holding the ball, or anything that may have helped you become a better pitcher?
I think Kerry picked my brain more than anything.
Okay.
You know, because Woody was, he was just a young kid.
Yep.
Here I am, 9 years older than him. But yeah, he just, they would always joke, him and Jason Beret, and Tapney, how quick I would get out there and pitch an inning and stuff. They would have bets on how quick I was going to get out of an inning. But it was, it was just, Woody, I think it was just two different, unique styles. I mean, he just here you got a guy that's a power pitcher, and here I am, a guy that's kind of more finesse and so forth, and my whole philosophy is, I'm trying to pitch to contact and try and get the team off the field, because less amount of pitches that a team can see off me is going to be better for me deeper in the game. So, and Kerry was just, just trying to, he was not trying to blow everybody away, but he had that ability to do that. You know what I mean? So, strikeouts just him. So it was just two different things, because I think, I admired him for being able to do what he did. And I knew I wasn't ever going to get to that level, but I think he tried to take stuff from me of like, hey, how do you do this? Or what are you trying to set them up for, or whatever. And I just try and simplify the game and try not to outthink myself, if that makes sense, and just best ability. And so,
yeah, you had probably two of your best years of your entire career in 2000 and 2001. Definitely, you were an all-star, but in 2000, and I didn't know this until I was doing research for this interview, but you actually led the National League, all National League pitchers, in innings pitched in 2000. Do you remember how many you threw?
256 and 2/3, I think.
Close, 251.
Or 251. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Tapney had a special bat made for me with 251 on it.
Okay. Okay. I mean, obviously today it's the magic numbers getting to 200 unless you're a Justin Verlander kind of guy, Max Scherzer, etc. But what enabled you health? Was it just health to be able to go out there and just throw 250 innings? Was it that you just felt in a groove, like you'd mentioned, you really kind of felt like you hit your stride in Chicago? What allowed you to be so successful in 2000 and lead into 2001 and throw 251 innings in a season, which is remarkable?
Well, my whole philosophy was just, get to the seventh inning, every time, and we'll go from there. But every time I step on the mound, it was, obviously you want to finish every game. Let me backtrack. You want to finish every game, but realistically, that's not going to happen. But I set myself up to at least get to the seventh inning, and if we can get to the eighth and ninth, that's a bonus. And usually my limit, for those games, they would start to notice, 95 to 105 pitches or so. Then we need to start watching them, and I might be out of the game. There would be times where I throw 120, 125 pitches, but I think the it all goes back to not being intimidated by the hitters, or the league, or so forth. I challenged anybody that came to the plate. I might get beat, some of the time or maybe most of the time. I don't know. But I was never afraid of, who was stepping up to the box. And it's no secret on what I'm going to throw. You're going to get a fastball or a slider, and you can take the
Mhm.
change the equation. I know it says in there that I threw a changeup, but I'm going to be honest with you. I maybe threw my changeup in my whole career 10% of the time,
Okay.
and yeah, maybe even less than that, But it was fastball, slider, and I developed a cutter probably in 2000, 2001 that helped me in that season. So, um, you know, it's a shame where the game is now. I feel like it's completely different than when the game I've known my whole life, that you grow up watching and you want to, be able to be that guy to be out there and, hopefully hand it over to, the bullpen. But nowadays, all they expect you to do is 5 innings. And
Right.
hell, I think I could go back and pitch now, to be honest with you. I can give you these 4 or 5. So,
Yeah, you look like you're in great shape. If the arm holds up, have them,
yeah, well, that and my legs, that's key. How good are my
Yeah.
legs? No,
Yeah.
it was an honor. That year was just kind of a blur. I always gave up more hits in my innings pitch, but to be able to have the confidence and leaving me out there in certain situations goes to show that, hey, I was giving the team a chance to win. We were in the ball game, and that's all they can ask for.
So 2001, we just touched on it, was by far probably statistically the best season of your career. You were named you were one of the Cubs representatives for the All-Star game. You won 20 games. You went 20-6 that year, joining obviously other pitchers who have won 20 games. What was it about 2001 that clicked for you?
Uh, I Well, I think the one thing that clicked was Oscar showing me, a cutter, for lefties. I've always had trouble against lefties, and being able to keep the ball in on lefties. Whenever I went in, I just had natural sink, either my two seamer or my four seamer. It would always run back
Sure.
across the. So being able to keep the ball, in on a left-handed hitter, that was the pitch I think that really helped me get over that hump in certain situations, to be able to pitch maybe deeper into ball games and stuff. So I give a lot of credit to Joe Girardi. He was one of my main catchers that year, and just trusting him, and the guys that play behind me. They're the guys that make the plays. We had a solid team that year, made a run for the playoffs. Obviously, we came a little short, I think, in September, but um, it just felt like everything just kind of was starting to come together, if that makes sense. Like, I was able to locate consistently with my pitches, the backdoor slider, just really mixing it up, and everything was just coming together.
Do you have a Sammy Sosa story that you can share? You said you're not a great storyteller, but you're doing really well so far. So I want to get a Sammy story out of you if you've got one.
Well, there's nothing bad about Sammy at all. He just, Sammy was just full of energy every time, and um, I guess the one story on him, actually it had to do with the hitting coach, Jeff Pentland at the time, but I'll just never forget. And because Sammy's the guy, he's the one that carries the team. But I remember the guys, they would kind of, well, they would get upset, not kind of, but they'd be in situations, and Sammy would show up, and in the bank, and everybody just had to leave. It was just like his show, and I got to get ready, and but he wasn't somebody I saw after the game. Whatever he did, you know, he was doing his own thing, but the guy came ready to play, every day, and that's one thing. I definitely can say that no matter what's being said out there, he came ready to play to the ballpark every day, and he gave his best, whatever he could do. So,
In your opinion, is Sammy Sosa a Hall of Famer?
absolutely, yeah, I'd say that about all the other guys too. And
Yep.
the reason being is, and I know there's going to be disagreement on this, but and I get the feedback. I can't believe you'd say that, and I blame Major League Baseball for not implementing, rules that should have been in play probably since the early '90s, mid '90s. They
Right.
knew this was going on. They knew when Mark McGuire and Sammy were having the season that they were having in '98. There was something going on. I mean,
Right.
there's no denying it. They wanted the fans to come back. They brought the people back. And then I think what bothers me the most, you're going to set them up in front of Congress and throw them all under the bus instead of, hey, let's do this internally. Let's clean
Right.
this up. We're going to have meetings one-on-one. We know what's going on. If you don't clean it up, we're going to start doing the testing and stuff. I mean, everybody knew what was going on. I mean,
Right.
you can't deny it. Now, do you want to be the whistleblower? I mean, I don't think anybody does. You got to give Conseco a lot of balls for coming out and doing what he did.
Yeah.
But do I think it's right? No, but he did. He did what he had to do, I guess, for him. But um, I don't think those guys should be denied to be in the Hall of Fame. I think if there was something implemented back then, it's a different story. But all of a sudden, you're going to create rules after the fact,
Right.
and then say, okay, yeah, you're tainted, and that's not fair because you take anybody in society and you put them in the same situation for a chance to be a better ball player or to make $20 million a year or whatever it
Right.
was. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, is it not fair to me? Of course, but it is what it is, and
Right.
so
So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to preface this by saying, if the answer is yes, I don't want to know the player or the organization, but in your major league career, did you witness any players taking steroids, greenies, anything like that? I don't want any names or organizations. I just want to know, did you personally witness either players doing it or players receiving them?
yes, yeah,
Okay. So, um, so in 2001, we kind of talked about right at the end of the season. Obviously, you're having one of the best season of your career, 20-win season. September 11th happens. The country shuts down. Obviously, it's a horrific incident for America. There's a week-long break in baseball. What kind of communication did you get from the team, from Major League Baseball Players Association, from the commissioner's office, from baseball in general, as to what was going on, when games were going to resume, all that kind of stuff?
well, I'll never forget it. I don't think anybody does a situation like that. But I remember my wife and I waking up, watching the news like we always do before we're getting ready to go to the ballpark. And of course, you see the World Trade Center on fire, and they said it was a small plane at first, and it's like, wow, that's kind of wild, and continue to watch it. Obviously, it's all over the news, and then you see the second plane hit, and it's like, holy, that okay, there's something going on now. This right. So that's when the phone calls start happening. Um, I think it was in. I'm going to say within a half an hour or so. You hear from. I think Joe Girardi was our player rep at the time, and he's calling all the players, hey, hang tight. They're in talks right now that this, obviously was a terrorist attack, and they don't want us coming to the ballpark. So we'll let you know further details. And obviously, came back later that afternoon. All games have been canceled until further notice. They weren't flying. No plane. Every plane was on the ground. So it's kind of freaky. When you think about it, and then you get to a situation of, all right, we're going to come back and play baseball, and because I started the last game before all this happened, and of course we come back, we got the week off. They're trying to keep the guys on the certain schedule, and of course I got the first game back, and you talk about a weird moment in time. I mean, it was, I can't even describe, well, the mood was just somber, and it was just unreal on the feeling in the ballpark. I mean, it's not like you can almost hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. So, but I think it was good for America, for baseball to come back and hopefully get things going again. And just remember, we are Americans. We just move forward and pick up the pieces and we just go, and
Right.
um, but it's to be a part of history like that. It's kind of surreal, if you know what I mean. So
I think for me, the most endearing image of that kind of whole time is, I think it was the first game back, and it was Sammy running out with the American flag to right field.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and you were actually the first pitcher. Here's a fun fact, and correct me if this is wrong. I found a fact that said that you had mentioned that you were the last pitcher before September 11th. You started the last game, and then you started the first game when you came back. You were actually the first pitcher for the Cubs to do that since Scott Sanderson in May of 1986. So you were the first. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep. Yep. So you were the first Cubs pitcher to start consecutive games since Scott Sanderson in May 18th and May 20th of 1986.
Now, what was Scott Sanderson's situation for him to do that?
I don't know. It doesn't say. But yeah, it says that you were the first Cubs pitcher since 1986.
Wow. Yeah, it's you just wonder when that'll ever happen again.
Right.
You know. So
Right. So let's transition out of 2001. 2002 obviously wasn't an ideal year for you on the mound, and then both health wise. You ended up having Tommy John surgery in 2002. Can you talk about when you started feeling maybe discomfort or that something wasn't okay? What led up to that? And then who performed the Tommy John surgery for you?
so 2001. I'll I'll never forget. Had a great game in Houston. I think it was late August, and threw a complete game. I think we won like 3-1 or something like that. Just felt great. Went out and played catch the next day on the foul line, get loose. I felt a twinge in my elbow. Nothing sharp, but it just felt okay. It's like maybe some wear and tear, from the previous year, because it was, some most innings, I've thrown in a while, and I'm starting to build up those innings again, and worked my way through it. The rest of the season didn't have any problems getting loose. I'd feel it when I'd start warming up, and then it would just kind of go away when I got in the game. Be totally fine. Never had any problems in between starts. Maybe feel a little bit, but so I'm thinking, all right, just need some rest. Getting into the offseason. I'm gonna wait like another month before I pick up a ball, and uh, go out to South Alabama. Turner Ward, who lives in the area at the time, he was still playing. We go to work out, and we go to play catch, and I think it was like the second or third throw. I mean, we're like 60 feet, 70 feet or whatever, and I let it go, and I'll tell you what, it grabbed on me like, man, it was like, oh boy, okay, that did not feel good compared to the year before. It's like, it's like, man, it didn't pop or anything, but it was like, wow, all right,
It was
this is,
different than your normal discomfort.
oh, big time. Yeah. So, and it was just like, and I'd move it around, and I remember going over to see Andrews, and of course,
Dr. James Andrews.
Dr. James Andrews, yeah, and I I can't remember. Yeah, I went over and saw him. I think before I left for spring training, did the MRI and everything, and he says everything looks fine. We don't see any abnormalities or no bone spurs or anything, and so it was just a program of it was still bothering me, and I was trying to work around it, and it was just a weird feeling because I was still pitching pretty good, not terrible, but it was in and out, if that makes sense. And we get to I think August, and my shoulder, it was affecting my shoulder. It was against the Padres, and I started throwing, and I remember my shoulder was dropping, and because I was trying to compensate for my elbow, and I just said, I'm done. I just can't, even though everything was fine and it looked good. Um, it was kind of bad timing too, because I was coming up on an option year, and I remember my teammates going, hey, try and continue pitching to pick up that option year. But I was more worried about my shoulder, hurt my shoulder. I just said, no, I'm done. I'm going to go get it fixed. Thinking maybe the Cubs would pick up that option or resign me back. But anyway, go down, set up the surgery, have it, I think 2 weeks later. Come to find out, Andrews did my surgery in Birmingham, and when he did the surgery, it wasn't torn, but the ligament was so stretched, it was bound to tear. He says, you have a ligament that it could tear tomorrow, it could be a week, it could be 6 months, it might be 2 years, but it was so stretched, like a stretched rubber band, that it was just a matter of timing. That was all the discomfort I was feeling. I kept stretching it. And, going into the next year, of course, the Cubs didn't pick up the option. I did have, the opportunity to come back to Chicago on a 1-year deal. But at the time, I knew I was going to miss the whole year. So I wasn't going to have the chance to come out and prove myself that the Cubs would hopefully sign me back for 2004. So really, my agent and we sat down. We thought a 2-year deal was the smartest way to do it. Uh, very small, salary up front with built-in incentives for 2004. And Jim Henry, who was the Creighton University head baseball coach when I was in high school and at Iowa Western, got really close with him. One of the finest GMs I've ever been around. Great person too. And he flat out told me, he said, look, he goes, I'd love to bring you back, but I think the Cubs were in transition of trying to sell the team and so forth. And he goes, we can't do that second year. And that's where the Yankees come into play. And I think Joe Girardi and Oscar Costa had some say-so in that. But you talk about a stressful moment in my life. Here I am. I'm building a brand new house. My wife's pregnant. I have no team, and don't know what's going to happen. And my wife at the time, she was panicking, which she had every right to. But I kept telling her, 'cause this is where I talked to Kerry a lot, after he went through his surgery, and Jason Beret and those guys, what's the rehab? Can you come back from this? Obviously, Woody came back just as strong as ever. So I felt very confident in myself that I was going to be fine. I was going to take it serious and, plan on not throwing the ball at all in 2003. And that's exactly what happened.
So, what was your timeline for recovery after you had the surgery? Obviously, right now Tommy John's looked at as about a year to maybe 18 months. Usually, that first year back, teams don't expect the player to be what he was pre-surgery. It's usually that second year back, kind of what you had talked about. Was it 12 months for you at that point from when you had the surgery to the point where you really started feeling like your pre-surgery self?
Yeah, actually, it was about 18 months.
Okay.
I think about the middle of July, or first week of July, is where I felt like I started coming around. Because it was up and down. April I missed because of an oblique injury, so I didn't pitch at all. But I think May and June and going into July some, it was just these peaks and valleys. I'm still pitching okay, but I just didn't feel like my old self, if that makes sense. And it's weird because August came around and going into September, the postseason, I felt like I was back to where I needed to be. I don't know if it looked the same. Obviously you're 3 years from where you were in 2001. I'm a little bit older, but as far as health wise, I felt great and, had no problems whatsoever.
Let's let's talk about that. So you played with the Yankees in 2004, and that was the only time in your career you made the postseason. I'm not trying to rub that in. I'm explaining. I want to obviously people know about that postseason. It was obviously one of the better Yankee teams. You guys were battling the Red Sox all year long. Um, you guys go in the ALDS to face my Twins. You started game two, I believe, in Yankee Stadium. You ended up pitching pretty well, 6 2/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. We had talked about what's that?
Oh, no, no, I just coughed.
Oh, we had talked about earlier about the nerves that you had on your major league debut and things like that. Can you talk about what the nerves or pressure, or if the process is different when you step on the mound in the postseason as opposed to maybe in the All-Star game on opening day, et cetera, et cetera? And then also talk to me about that 2004 season.
Well, the 2004 season, was incredible. Probably the most talent I've ever been involved in, or around, I should say, to be a part of. It was amazing. It was awesome. You just felt like every time you walked out on that field, you're going to win a ball game. I mean, I don't think there was any other team where I could go out and give up 5 runs and you feel like you're still going to win the game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It was incredible. I mean, Tory, the amount of, I don't mean this in a bad way, but the egos, that come into a clubhouse like that,
for sure.
yeah, they're bringing in guys every year from other clubs, or they're trying to re-sign guys. That was their thing back in the day. And for Joe Torre to kind of keep all that together, and I give a lot of credit to Derek Jeter. It's the first time I've been around Derek Jeter, and to really see him, I mean, he thrived for those situations, being in the limelight and stuff, and to be able to keep everybody on the same page and have, uh, you know, this is what we're here for. This is what we're supposed to do, and this is what we need to do, and that's to win the championship. So, I've never been involved on a team quite prepared like they were on that 2004 team. So, um, it was a lot of fun going. I just felt like I flew underneath the radar. There was no pressure for me. They just gave me the ball this day. Just go out there and do what you need to do. I didn't put any pressure on myself, and they knew, the stakes of me going into that season, what I was coming off of, and I thought I performed pretty well. We get to the postseason, obviously excited. I think that fan base prepared me for it because it seemed like it was, sold out almost every game. I know it wasn't, but you get into the big series with the Red Sox or some of the other teams where, I mean, they're just diehards. And honestly, playing the Red Sox that year to me felt like I was in the playoffs every time. It was absolutely amazing. Um, and honestly, that goes back to when I was in Chicago. Same thing with the Cardinals. That there, you felt like it was a playoff atmosphere. So uh, I think those games prepared me for those situations when we got, when we played the Twins. I mean, it was just felt like a regular game. No pressure, and obviously playing the Red Sox going forward. So
Yeah, I mean, you talked earlier when you talked about your major league debut in Philadelphia, 56,000 people. Is it more intimidating to face 50 to have to pitch with 56,000 Philadelphia fans in your major league debut, or is it more, or is it Red Sox fans as a Yankee?
uh, I think there's a little bit more pressure with the Yankees and Red Sox.
Okay.
It's just it is a love hate relationship with those two
Yep.
clubs. And look, we'd go into Boston every year, and I'd be on the bus, taking the bus to the ballpark, and I kid you not, there would be people walking the sidewalks or whatever, and they would stop. Didn't matter if it was your grandmother, or didn't matter if it was a 5-year-old. They're doing this to the bus the whole way. I mean, just stop what they're doing, and it was just like, is this really just, I wish I had an iPhone back then. I'd be videotaping that. But it was absolutely insane. And you know, and to be able to pitch in that pressure, I mean, it all goes back to to giving the credit to CP, my days at South Alabama, and to Oscar Acosta, those type of coaches, that prepare you for that. So, it was a lot of fun, to be honest with you. It was a blast.
You mentioned all the talent in the Yankees team in 2004. The game two lineup that you had behind you when you beat the Twins was Jeter, A-Rod, Sheffield, Matsui, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, Ruben Sierra, John Olerud, and Miguel Cairo. Good Lord. Good
Yeah,
Lord.
I'm glad I didn't have to face that lineup.
Right, right. So game two, you're in Yankee Stadium. You pitched pretty well. This actually ended up being a 12-inning game. You guys won 7-6. I don't know how much of it you recall, but this is one of the rare games where Mariano Rivera blew a save in the postseason. He pitched at 1 2/3 innings, gave up 2 hits.
Was
But
that was game two?
that was game two. Yep.
What was the score on that?
7-6 was the final in 12 innings.
Yeah, I thought we won that game 3-1. We beat,
Seven
we
in
Yep.
2004 ALDS. You guys won. You guys lost game 1 2-0. You won 7-6. In game 2, you won game 3 8-4, and you won game 4 6-5.
That was against who?
The Twins.
Oh, the Twins. Okay,
Yeah, ALDS. Yep.
okay, okay, yeah.
What do you remember about, obviously I'm a Twins fan. What do you remember about, you didn't face the Twins a lot. You had just the one season with the Yankees, but kind of as somebody from afar who faced them maybe in interleague play, what do you remember or recognize about the Dome Twins fans, the way the Twins organization played, and then specifically about that game?
I mean, just a gritty team. I mean, they just battled, to be honest with you. It wasn't a cakewalk anytime we played you guys. It was it was a battle in and out, so the king, not the Kingdom, the Dome,
Metrodome. Yeah.
Metronome at the time, that I pitched it in at one time, and it was it can be hard to pitch in, believe it or not. But just the way they played the game, and the way they went about preparing for the game, it was just very gritty, hard nosed, and just a lot of credit. They battled down to the last pitch every time.
When you look back at your career and you were an all-star in 2001, you're a 20-game winner, you went through everything with 9/11, etc. Do you look at the 2004 season maybe in your eyes as the most special because not only was it with probably the most iconic franchise in all of sports, but you also made the playoffs, and not only that, but you were part of probably the most famous postseason maybe in the last 30 years, if not more, if not ever.
I was going to say probably the most famous postseason ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin on that. That was that was crazy. And you start out, Mike Mussina pitches 7 innings and no hit ball, and then luckily we won that game, I think barely. I become Pedro's daddy the next night. So, you know, and for a big game like that,
Yeah.
and people don't, I don't think people realize this, but I faced the Red Sox. I think the previous 3 or 4 weeks, I faced them like 3 times, 2 or 3 times before that game. So, they've seen me quite a bit,
Yeah.
and to be able to pitch deep into a game against Pedro, look, I'm going to say it's pretty remarkable. So,
Yeah.
because that's a hell of a lineup you're facing over there. So,
Absolutely.
and then you get to game 3 in Boston and just wear them out. I think it was what, 18-7 or
It was
something like.
like, yeah, something like that. 14-5, eighteen to
I
seven,
mean,
something like, yeah, it was a blowout.
yeah, Matsui was just having a hell of a postseason. I mean, just went off, and I'll never forget one of those moments again where we're at the hotel, and I'm in there with a couple guys and Gary Tuck, who's a bullpen catcher at the time, and it's I don't know if I said it or somebody else. I'm like, man, I can't believe it. We're about ready to go to the World Series or something, and I'm just like, and he says, he starts shaking his fingers. This isn't over yet. He goes, we do not want this to get back to Yankee Stadium in Game 7, and I'll never forget that because here comes David Ortiz in Game 4, 5, and 6, and or not 6, but 4 and 5
4 and
that
5.
got him to you know
Mm-hmm.
to the next games, and there was multiple times where we had a chance to win those games, and we just didn't do it. And I'll never forget coming back game 4 back to Boston, and they're congratulating us about going to the World Series. The players are, uh,
Really?
because yeah, I mean, anybody would assume
Yeah.
it's over, thinking, all right, man, good luck to you guys, and
Yep.
we're not going to come back from this. I mean, you guys are at least going to win one more, and
Right.
so it was just one of those things, and you get the game 6 with Schilling. He's coming off that injury, and had this surgery, and I give up a 3-run homer in the 4th inning against a guy that struggled. He struggled against me for most of the year. Hits an awful home run in that moment. We lose that game 4-2, and Schilling's hurt, and we don't bunt on him. I always think about that situation. It's like we didn't lay down one bunt that whole game, for a guy that had a bad ankle, and just make him go field the ball or something. But and then get our asses handed to us in Game 7. I mean, just in the first inning, it was like it was over. That was it.
When you talked about giving up that home run, you guys lost 4-2. You give up the home run in the 4th inning. You guys end up losing that game. Just not so much as a teammate, but as a person. Obviously, you want the team to succeed. You guys are, you were up 3-0. Now it's 3-1. Then it's 3-2. What is there a worse feeling as a professional athlete than to have that moment where like all eyes are on you and then you end up, I mean, obviously you mentioned, you thought that the Yankees were going to score 5 runs and win with that lineup they had. What was that moment like for you personally?
Uh, I really didn't play that much into it, believe it or not.
Okay.
I didn't. I made one bad pitch, that whole
Right.
game.
Yeah.
Thinker that was up. It didn't. It didn't go. It didn't break like it was supposed to. And out of all the guys to hit it was the one guy that usually misses that ball.
Yeah.
And nothing against Mark Bellhorn. Mark was a great teammate of mine over in Chicago. He's an Auburn graduate, so
Yeah.
war. But personally, after the fact, it's been so many years. If there was anybody that it happened to, I'm glad it was him because there was so much pressure on him to perform, and he was struggling at times that year. And for if there, like I said, if there was a moment in time for that to happen to somebody, I'm glad it was him.
When you guys were up 3-0 and then you were up 3-1, 3-2, and then it was tied at 3 for games. did Joe Torre's message change at all to you guys before each game? He doesn't seem like a guy who would change his message up a whole lot.
No, he didn't. It was just, the same. Hey, I think after that second one, when we were up 3-2, it's like, hey guys, just relax. You know, we're going to be fine. Just don't let that get to you. I wasn't there for game 5. They flew me back. I wanted to stay because hell, I wanted to celebrate if we did win.
Right.
But no, they flew me back to get ready for game 6 because we had a rain. I think it was a rain out. So usually you have a day off before you play game 6, but we played that next night, and they wanted to make sure I got back and got enough rest, I guess. So, but looking back on that, I think there probably was a little bit of panic. I'm sure of like, hey, we can do this.
Right.
I think you could sense the pressure that we were putting on ourselves going into.
And obviously everybody knows, Derek Jeter's legacy and A-Rod's legacy and things like that. And you only played that one season with DJ, but do you, in your opinion, did that series really show maybe all of America that David Ortiz is one of the best postseason performers of all time?
I think it was the beginning of it.
Okay.
I mean, he definitely put himself on the map with that series.
Yeah.
I mean, and he had a heck of a season that year, but I think in those moments, yeah, it was the beginning of his, of making him a Hall of Famer for sure.
Is it, even though you guys lost that series, looking back on it 20 years, 20 years ago this year, is that the most fun you've ever had in a series? Like you mentioned how it's Yankees, Red Sox, the adrenaline's pumping, it's you're up 3-0, it's a chance to go to the World Series. Like, even though you lost, was that still the most fun you've ever had in a series in baseball?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, nothing. I don't think there was anything, besides maybe the '08 team that I was on in Chicago.
Sure.
I didn't get to finish, that year, but that was probably one of the best teams I've ever played for too. But yeah, everything with that postseason, and it just sucks we came up short,
Yeah.
because who knows what could have happened, but that doesn't take anything away from Boston because they did what they had to do, and they deserve every bit of that. And to go on and sweep St. Louis was just, they got hot at the right time. I mean, that's all you can say.
That was the one season that you spent in the American League. That off season, you signed a 3-year deal, I believe, with the Philadelphia Phillies. Can you tell me about what made you decide to sign with Philadelphia? Was that the only offer you got? You're coming off being on, you had a pretty good year in 2004. You said as the 5th starter, there was no pressure. Yeah. You were in the postseason. Can you kind of talk about that off season and what made you decide to sign with Philadelphia?
Well, just, I was trying to sign back with New York. They were just wanting to offer me 2 years. We were looking for a 3-year deal. That's really what I wanted to shoot for, because the way I was looking at it, like, was this was probably going to be it. So I was just trying to get as much as I could locked up for security reasons, I guess. But I really wanted a 3-year deal somewhere. They just were not going to offer that 3rd year, and really I had an option year that they didn't even pick up. And everybody kept telling me, all the Yankees are going to pick that up. It's all about what you do in the postseason. You had a hell of a postseason. It's a no-brainer. They didn't even pick it up. They just kind of let me walk, and they just wanted to sign me back for 2 years. I think it was, I think they were offering six a year. And at that time, what we were looking for was 7 a year, and that was the fair market value back then. And so they were wanting to get younger, I guess, too. That's when they signed Jarrett Wright, and brought him. I think he was 28, 29 at the time, and we get into January, and Ed Wade calls my agent, who's knows very well. My agent's from outside of Philadelphia, in media, and so that, I had an offer from Cleveland. I love Cleveland. I would have played in Cleveland. It would have given me the 3 year, you know, 7 a year, but
Sure.
I think they were stuck on 5 a year, and you know, love the town, love the field, whatever. But yeah, Philly came in the picture, made the deal happen, and I didn't even think twice about it. I just knew, I just wanted something that was fair, give me security for my family and I, and like I said, I didn't care where I was playing, and that was another good decision to go there and play and be a part of that club.
Yeah, that first year you were tied for fifth in the National League with 17 wins. What do you remember about those kind of 3 years? You said you signed there, you kind of could sense you were winding things down, or maybe at least on the back end of your career. Can you talk about, those 3 years in Philadelphia?
Yeah, the first year was great. It was my first year under Charlie Manuel, which I regard as probably the best manager I've ever played under, and the reason being was great communicator with his teammate or with the team, and good or bad. He'd go around and talk to each individual, and he's just always positive, and but everybody looks at Charlie like, he's this goofball, doesn't know what he's doing or whatever. Charlie's a hell of a baseball man. I mean, one of the smartest guys in the game I've ever been around, and he can manage a team. I mean, there was nobody better. So, was super excited about that. Had a good time, great teammates to be around. They were bringing in some young guys. Chase Utley, that was his first year.
Ryan Howard, was he on that team?
Howard, I think, came in. Tommy was there that
Oh,
first year.
yeah.
Howard in, I think, in 06. Jimmy Rollins.
Shane Victorino was on one of those teams, I
Shane,
think.
yeah, I think Shane came in. I think he came in 05 or 06. That was his rookie year.
Brad Lidge was on there, yeah.
Yeah, so they were putting the pieces together, and
Right.
we just missed the playoffs in 05. And then 06, had a down year. Just things didn't go my way. Didn't pitch that great. Had a new GM at the time, Pat Gillick. Not a big fan of his. I'm not going to lie. I just he's not very approachable, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So couldn't really talk to him about some things that were going on. But I tried to battle through it. It just didn't pan out. 07, was trying to work through it again. They were trying to trade me. That was in the back of my mind too. And I think I was just getting more frustrated at myself than anything, instead of trying to make myself better. And, I'm not proud of it. But I'm going to say it. I think I tried to point fingers more than anything. And that's not the right way to go about, when you're struggling in things and things aren't going your way. And I put a lot of blame on myself for putting myself in that situation. So, had the injury, ruptured a tendon in my foot. And that's when they went into the postseason that year, and obviously winning the World Series in 08. So
You ended up signing back up with the Cubs in 2008 to kind of finish your career. Can you talk about that 2008 season, and when you decided, or when baseball or your body decided that it's time?
well, yeah. So talked to Jim. Jim was the GM at the time, and I needed to refocus. I guess I need to get out of that situation in Philly. Nothing against the clubhouse or anything like that.
Right.
Love the clubhouse. I mean, great guys. I just wasn't pitching up to my par, I felt like, and so I just wanted to kind of reset myself in an area where I knew I was successful, and I thought Chicago was the best place. And so Jim and we talked about it. It took about a week for that deal to get into place. He treated me very fairly. Was glad to have me back. I think there was just a few guys that were left over from, 01 team. Mark Pryor came in after I think he just came in. Let's see, was he on that 08 team? I can't, maybe not. He might have already gotten hurt, but, Woody was still there. And a few other guys, but, went in, wasn't expecting much. I pitched out of the bullpen some in Philly, and I was just going in with an open mind. I'm not going to fight it. Wherever you need me, I'll pitch out of the bullpen. I prefer to start, but had a great spring training. And they started me, and personally, I thought I won the fifth spot on that club, but they put Jason Marquis, as the fifth starter to open the season, which I'm like, okay, that's fine. So going to the season and pitching fairly well, but Lou Piniella, I'm not a big fan of his either. Lou, where I'm going with this, he put me in some situations I felt like were pretty unfair to me, and one of them was, I struggled against the Reds that year, and very, very bad. You look at my numbers. I mean, they're terrible. And they put me on the Phantom DL. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks. They were trying to trade me. And, in all fairness, Jim even asked me, would I be open to a trade? That's when they brought up Jeff Samardzija halfway through the season. And and I told Jim, I said, I really don't, because I'm really comfortable with this team. I think we got a chance to go very far, possibly win the whole thing, and I want to be a part of it. So he understood that, but it was supposed to be a 2-week, DL thing that turned into 2 months, and so I get pulled off the DL, come up in September, and Lou's got a chance to put me in a couple series against a couple other teams before we go on the road to Cincinnati. And who's the first team he puts me in against? The Cincinnati Reds. And ended up, pitching one inning, getting out of it, and then give up a grand slam to Jay Bruce. And I just said, I'm done. Mentally, I was drained. I can't deal with this. I walked away on my own terms. I would have loved to finish the season, maybe play another year or two. But I was just mentally drained. I had 4 kids at home. I was just ready to go home and be with them, be a dad, and that was it. And I had offers to go play elsewhere the next year, maybe for another year or two, but I just wasn't interested. I knew what was ahead of me. These younger guys, I just couldn't compete with that no more. My velocity had dropped over the last few years. I just wasn't the same pitcher that I was or hoped to be, 8 years ago. So it is what it is. I have no regrets, and here I am now.
I've taken up a lot of your time. You've been very, very generous today, but I do have a few. I got some fun questions that people sent in that I really want to get to. One question is, do you have any memorabilia from your playing days?
A
And if
lot.
so, what?
I have a lot. It's
Okay.
yeah, a lot of bats, jerseys, balls. I've gotten some gloves from some guys, not a whole lot, but I probably have more bats than anything. I'm just one of those fans, going in. I'm just a huge fan of the game, and I love the history of the game and the guys, the people I've been able to meet through this game has been incredible. And so I wanted not only for me, personally, to have that, in my life, but really something down to my kids. And
Sure.
I think some of my most prized possessions, I got a Barry Bonds All-Star bat in the Home Run Derby that, he gave to me. I asked him. My biggest prize possession is a game used bat. When Mark McGwire got traded over from Oakland to St. Louis, he made his debut against me. No, I'm sorry, not against me. It was in that series, but I was able to pitch. It was like his second or third game, and I broke his bat, and it's just a small fracture on the bat. And
Yeah.
anyway, I got to first base. I got on base, and I asked him during the game. I said, love what you're doing. I'm just a fan of the game, but any chance of getting a bat? And very nice, cordial. He said, absolutely. And he sent over that bat that he faced me with in that game. And like I said, he said, to Jon, best of luck in your career. Home runs, I don't know, 52, 53, and 54. He goes, congratulations, you broke it. And what's pretty cool about that bat, he's the only guy in baseball history to homer 20 times in the American League and 20 times in the National League in the same year, in the middle of it. So to me, I feel like I got a piece of history with that bat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and having that. So it's really kind of special there.
Absolutely. Do you have anything from your major league debut?
I have trying to think. I have my jersey and everything. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it. To be honest with you, just my jersey.
Okay. Next question kind of made me laugh when I read it in the comments. It was, what's the funniest or weirdest thing a fan has asked you to sign, either in person or through the mail? Like, has somebody ever pulled a Ricky Bobby and had you like sign a baby's head or something?
No, nothing like that. Probably their chest or something.
Okay.
And not girls or anything like that.
Right.
Just just sign here
Right.
on my forearm or something like that. Is just
For
kind of
sure.
yeah.
My question for you is, what are some things that you like about the current game, and what are some things you dislike about the current game?
How much time
And
we got?
you got as much time as you're willing to give me, sir.
I hate the game the way it is now. I'm not
Okay.
gonna lie. I'm just
Sure.
I'm not a big fan of it. I know there's people out there that probably love it, but it's just I'm not a big Rob Manfred fan. I think he slowly chipped away at destroying something that had no issues. I think how do I say this? I think you had people chirping in, trying to make a big deal out of certain situations. I think it all started with the umpires going on strike. And Major League Baseball taking over the umpires. When I came up through the game, all right, yeah, the umpires got a shitty zone. Okay, it is what it is.
Right.
But at the same time, the hitters and the pitchers knew what the zone was going to be for that guy. You might have this umpire behind home plate for this game. All right, he's not going to call the ball inside, even though it's a strike. It's going to be a ball, but he'll give you 3 off the plate outside, or he's going to call the high strike, or he's going to call the low strike. I had no problems with the game. You had your arguments, which is part of it.
Right.
That's what fans like. They like
Absolutely.
and so the umpires wanted a fair shake on their agreement. They just like anybody else, they want to make a little bit more money, which shouldn't be a problem. But I think Major League Baseball took it to an extreme. To all right, we're going to show you ain't going to get crap, and it put them in a tough spot. And these guys do this for a living. They're not like making ball players money or anything like that. So it's a tough spot for them, to where most of those guys had to cave in. And now that we're going to reinvent the game, and we're going to put the umpires in there that should be doing what they need to be doing, because now TV's starting to take over, and we're starting to pinpoint certain strike zones, and screw all that stuff. I just think I love the human element of the game. I always have. I don't think anybody would agree or disagree with that. All right, that's part of it. That's part of the disagreement of, man, that was a ball or that was a strike, and you argue. And this, don't put a box up there and expect it. Okay, if it's in this box, it's a strike or whatever. No, let the umpire make the call. It's a judgment, and that's the way it's been for 150 years.
Right.
And you're starting to pinpoint it now to where we're not even going to have an umpire behind home plate making these calls. We're going to have a computer-generated game now of making all these, making these calls. And now you're changing to, making the bases bigger, and now you can't even steal.
The pitch clock.
Yeah, or you can't even throw over. You can only throw over 3. Come on, give me a break. I mean, what are we trying to do here? And you're trying to please a small number of people. To me, it's changing in a lot of ways. And look, my stepson his field's going to be, analytics. That's what he wants to go into. I'm happy for him. I'm excited for him. I think there's a place for analytical stuff in this game. I'm not a big fan of it. I think you're getting
Do you think
guys.
baseball's too analytical?
Oh, very much.
Yeah.
You have so many people involved in the game now that have never even played the game. They're just going off of data as hitting coaches, as pitching coaches that have never put a foot on the mound or in the batter's box and been in that situation. And they look for elevation or spin ratio. And to me, okay, you get in a certain count, 1-1. All right, the analytical data says you need to throw this. Bullshit. I might want to take a little bit off my slider to get the guy out in front. There's a purpose on what I'm trying to set him up to do that it doesn't see until it gets to a certain count. Does that make sense? And Maddox was the best at what he did because he was looking 2 pitches ahead compared to, I don't care what the count is now. I'm trying to set the guy up for, it might be 3-1 or it might be, 1-2 or whatever. And it's completely changed the game. And it's sad. It really is.
I completely agree with you on the Rob Manfred stuff. I agree with you on the bases and pretty much everything you talked about. Can you give me one thing you do like about baseball?
It's still a place where you can take your family, you can take your kids and get away from everyday life and just enjoy it for 2 or 3 hours. Go get you a beer, go get you a hot dog. It's outside for the most part. And just, enjoy it, because that's the one thing, you remember as a kid being outside and being lost in the moment. And it's, that's something that'll never change, and you get to follow certain players. So.
I took my wife to her first Twins game last year, and I told her on the way into the ballpark, I said, I never feel more American than I do at a ballpark with a hot dog and a beer, baseball playing, the Star Spangled Banner, the 7th inning stretch. I said, that to me, that's what America is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what's always been a part of America's backbone. I truly believe that. I never really understood it when I was younger, but now that I've gotten a chance to play it and be a part of it and be out of the game for 16 years, I get it. I totally get it.
Last question is, obviously baseball is a global sport for the most part. You've got a lot of, you've got guys like Shohei Ohtani, and you played with Hideki Matsui, and there were some Japanese players back when you played, Hideo Nomo, Chan-Ho Park, guys like that. There's a lot of Dominican players now. For the most part, other than Shohei Ohtani, and maybe even including him, do you think baseball has a marketing problem? Especially when you kind of look at other sports. You look at other sports like football and the NBA, and you're seeing commercials for them, and you're seeing Patrick Mahomes on State Farm commercials, and you're seeing, NBA players doing commercials. You don't really see a whole lot of baseball players doing commercials. Do you think baseball has a marketing problem? And if so, how do you think they can solve it?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about that, because I'm going to be honest. I don't watch it that much.
Okay. Sure.
I could go and watch maybe a couple innings, but I've always had a hard time with that, because I've always wanted to be out there, if that makes sense. I want to play.
Totally.
I hated sitting on the bench and watching, or I can't sit and watch a 9-inning game. but I think that I don't know. It maybe so. I think it's when you look at basketball players and I don't know, maybe there's something involved to where they feel like it's too the fans, I'm talking about the kids, trying to relate to the kids, it's too boring, if that makes sense. And maybe that's what Manfred's tried to do, is make it more exciting for the fan base. And honestly, I get that. But you start messing around with certain areas that have been perfectly fine with the game for a long time, starting to open up Pandora's box with other things, and that's not good, because it's a game that has never been broken, and the fans always come back. So I think they're trying to get it out there. I think what needs to be done, honestly, is there's a lot of Dominican players coming in, or Venezuelan. I understand a lot of these other countries can't afford to build the kind of complexes like what we have here in America, and that's why they come here and play. But I think it's about time to where maybe some investments need to be made in some of these other countries, and market more of those guys that come from those countries. You know what I mean? And all right, Japanese are starting to catch up with American baseball. All right, why can't we start playing Japanese teams? Or all right, they're good enough. Let them play there. Let the American people play, in America. Dominican, I know you could open up 6 stadiums down there, because the people would flock. Now, can they afford a ticket? That's another thing. I don't know. That all comes back, but the talent that comes out of there, absolutely. So it's hard to say. I mean, it's turning into a global sport. How far it can go is just have to wait and see.
As a guy, as a proficient hitter who once had 8 RBIs in one season, and as a guy who won 20 games in a season, can you tell people? I know you mentioned you don't watch a lot of baseball. This is the last question. Can you tell people just how difficult what Shohei Ohtani is doing really is?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, to have an arm like him and be able to pitch like he does. Now, granted, he's had 2 major surgeries. How much more does he have left in his arm? Because I've heard Dr. Andrews even say it before. You only have so many surgery before you just can't do it no more.
Right.
I think he went through that with Jose Rio back in the early '90s.
Yeah.
But to be able to hit with the power and the average, and just it's those guys maybe come along once in a lifetime, or every 100 years or something. Who knows? I think the last to do it was probably Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
At that level. So, and I've heard people complain about how much he signed for, but if you think about it in long terms, I mean, he's worth every penny. I mean, he really is. He's an entertainer on both sides of the mound and the batter's box. So it's pretty cool.
I think that's a great place to end the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Jon Lieber, the very candid Jon Lieber, great conversation. Just an outstanding career, 20-game winner, Major League Baseball All-Star, living down in Alabama, living your best life. What are you up to nowadays?
Well, just got remarried about 2 years ago, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. Loving life. We are loving life. It's been a lot of fun. We've had some adventures. We're looking for many more adventures, but the kids have they've kind of left the nest a little bit, and so we're looking for our best lives, going forward. Kim and I, and I can't wait.
Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough. This episode will be up here within a day or two. Ladies and gentlemen, former Major League All-Star 2001 with the Chicago Cubs and 20-game winner, Jon Lieber. Jon, I know I took more of your time than we planned on, but hey, I thank you so much, my friend. You were fantastic, and I appreciate you greatly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devin.
Yep, no problem. Thanks. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jon. Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Lieber. And we will see you next time on the show about the show.